You're listening to the Scott Radley Show podcast on 900 CHML.
Yesterday, you may have heard this. Yesterday was World Toilet Day. No, we're not making jokes. We're not having a lot of fun with it right now because we could. There's a lot of stuff we could say. There's a lot of funny stuff, but we're not because outside of North America and the developed world where we all are, this is a serious issue. Sanitation is a huge problem. According to the United Nations, 4.2 billion people live without safe sanitation, and it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination to realize what the problem is here, why this is an issue. Disease can more easily spread. Drinking water can be polluted. There's all kinds of things, and all of these then lead to chain reactions to what they say are tens of thousands of deaths every year simply because we don't have in these areas proper sanitation. My next guest is joining us tonight from Malawi, which is on the east coast of Africa. You kind of go Tanzania, Kenya, Tanzania down there, and then it's right below there. She's a Canadian woman who founded Love a Village Mission, which helps people in these parts of the world. Yesterday, she was helping build some sanitation projects in that part of the world. Her name is Julie Seath. Julie, thanks for doing this today.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here.
And thanks for, I know it's the middle of the night there and we woke you up, so thanks for doing this.
It is. It's 1:30 a.m., but I'm really happy to be here. It's an important topic.
Well, and again, it's hard to talk about toilets and bathrooms without making it sound like it's not really a big deal because we very much take it for granted here and don't really think about it. What is, for most people, especially those who are living way out in the rural areas, are we really legitimately talking about just a hole in the ground or standing behind some trees or whatever?
Yes, we are. Open defecation here is common, often without any sort of structure that's been built either by mud and stick or with hand-baked brick. So it is a major problem. 85% of this country lives in rural setting in extreme poverty, and almost half of the population of approximately 19 million are living without safe sanitation.
So, not to be, again, putting too fine a point on it and being too gross, but I mean, you are literally finding a place to go and then just going. I mean, are we digging holes even for this, or is it just right there and then you walk away?
Well, the men have it quite easily. They can do it wherever they want, part of their business. But yes, each household generally, some of them are sharing. They just literally are digging a hole in the ground. And if they have the capability to build something around it, they are. We're targeting a large group of people who would be considered vulnerable. That's the elderly, the physically or mentally disabled, and those who might have a chronic illness. And we're helping them put a structure around the hole in the ground that they may have had someone dig for them.
This may be a ridiculous question, but socially there, is it a social issue for privacy and things like that? Or because they've grown up with it, because they've lived with it all their life, it's just an acceptable thing? Is it shameful or embarrassing, or is it just okay?
I think as a Canadian woman here, I find it embarrassing, but I think generally dignity is something that is important. Safe sanitation is a human right, and it's a crisis here. It's a global crisis, and it is rather embarrassing, particularly for women and for girls, especially those who are menstruating. It's an embarrassment, and we're also dealing with that issue with the two primary schools here. We've put in some girls. They use them as a urinal. They say nobody poops during the school hours. So we've got some girls' urinals going into place here so that they can have some privacy, because the boys are often teasing the girls when they're going and using the washroom.
From your time over there, we hear from the United Nations about these numbers. Can you draw a direct line in your experience from the sanitation situation to illnesses?
Oh, absolutely. There was an under 5 clinic in our community. We now have nothing there. But we noticed that through the placement worker that was there, he was able to see with our water projects and with our sanitation projects a a decline in the number of children, in particular under 5, coming with diarrheal problems or any intestinal sorts of problems.
Okay, so if that's the case, and I believe that it is, and again, the numbers back it up, why is it that people here, we think of, if we get one of the catalogs that are out there now, either online or in print, for some of these aid organizations, you want to at Christmas do some donation to a company, we get an opportunity we think about vaccines or school supplies or a goat or mosquito nets or whatever. We never ever, that I've remembered ever seeing, we never see a toilet. Why, if this is such a big problem, why is it so ignored back here?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. We're dealing with it, and we do have one of those stereotypical, quote, catalogs out there, and we do have toilets in it. It is a crisis. It's a right, and without it, people are dying. The elderly, the chronically ill, and the under 5s, they are dying from improper sanitation. So it's one of the most critical things. Without it, you can't have a community advance. You have people who are ill, they're unable to be in their fields growing their food. They're unable to go to school. Children are often asked to take care of those who are ill from such things, and they're missing school. So it's absolutely imperative that everybody has a way to have proper sanitation. It's a human right to have that.
You're listening to the Scott Radley Show podcast on 900 CHML.
We are chatting with Julie Seath, who joins us from Malawi on the east edge of Africa. Go look it up on a map if you don't know where it is. I had to look it up today. I knew where Kenya was, I knew where Tanzania was, I knew where Uganda was. Had to refresh my memory on Malawi, which Julie probably means that I didn't pay any near enough attention to geography in high school or something. Anyway, Let me ask you a question about this, because I'm wondering, we're talking about toilets, we're talking about World Toilet Day, we're talking about sanitation in the developing world. You're a Canadian woman who has gone over there. You have your charity, your organization, Love a Village, that is doing things to help. But is this something that is very is important to the people there? Is this something they are driving as well? Or is this merely something that people in the developed world are going over and saying, no, you need to have toilets and sanitation?
That's a fantastic question. I think an example is the woman that we gave a toilet to yesterday, and just the joy that was on her face. She doesn't even know how old she is, but she's over 80 according to her son. And she is dealing with having to raise herself off the ground with her hands, and in the rainy season, that's muddy. And if she's missed the hole, her hands are going in it. And she's thrilled that we're using one of the methods for safe sanitation is to be able to ensure that the waste is away from human contact. We have flushable toilets in Canada. Here it's going into a pit latrine, and we're covering those pit latrines with slab covers, and we're giving them a treat. It's actually a treat to have a concrete pedestal to sit on. So she's sitting on concrete, and it's a raised platform similar to what we sit on at home. And she's absolutely thrilled. So it's something they really want, and they're excited to have. There's no more squatting on the ground. We had a man with a wooden leg. You can't squat with a wooden leg. And he lived his last 6 months of life with a pedestal toilet seat. And I get overwhelmed by that emotionally, and just the thought that someone who has lived their life so vulnerably, and he was just thrilled to be able to have this pedestal, concrete pedestal to sit on, and died 6 months later. It was a joy to give that to him. You are doing a lot of your work in very, very, very remote areas. I mean, literally out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming that most, or at least many of the people there don't have the technology. They don't have the internet. They don't. So do they know, do these people who are dealing with this, do they know what the rest of the world does or uses, or do they know what the sanitation systems or things are in other parts of the world? Or is this completely new when you come in with a toilet or with something like a toilet and say, here, use this and sit on it rather than squatting? You know, I actually believe that a large percentage of them have no concept of what a flushing system is. They're a 6-hour walk some of them from the roadway, which is a network of minibuses and motorcycles and bikes and cars. They wouldn't have a concept of anything flushable. The fact that they can sit on something, yes, can be a very new concept to them.
And as you say, there's no sanitary system as far as plumbing or something. So what is it that, in a best case scenario in these places, what is it that you can build that creates then, it's a seat, but around what you do with the disposal and everything else to keep it healthy and to keep from having disease spread? What can you do?
Well, we have dimensions that are required for a proper, safe pit latrine, much like our outhouses that used to be around in cottage country in Canada. And that's being covered by a concrete slab that we're also teaching them how to make. Then a brick structure is going up. There's a PVC pipe that goes into the pit that allows for the fumes to be taken outside of the latrine area. And those are what we are providing for them. We definitely include their assistance. We want them to become somewhat feeling some ownership towards what they're receiving as well, and they actually have a joy in participating. Even if it's just passing bricks or helping to dig the holes, they have relatives, boys, young men who are helping to get down into the harder business of being able to dig this pit for them.
And if somebody was wanting to control, I mean, what does this cost to put one of these together?
A lot of it's handmade. The bricks are handmade, but the concrete's expensive, the PVC piping, and we do hire people. We want to hire the Malawians and empower them. We're hiring some of them to help build the structure. So approximately $100 can help us assist putting one of these into place. Which
would affect how many people?
A household, which averages 5. And we want one per household, not per village area. We want one per household.
It's it's one of those things that we just never, ever, ever think about here, because why would we? I mean, we've all grown up with flush toilet. You know, if it gets plugged or if the water stops, we get into a panic. We've never had to think about this kind of stuff. If you're interested in going to Julie's website and helping out with this, I mean, there's a lot of different charities, but I'll point you to Julie's. Loveavillage.org is where you can find it. You can find out about that. I'm sure that there's somewhere on there you can donate if you want to help out. Julie, I'll let you get back to sleep. It's the middle of the night in Malawi. I appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much for your work.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it a lot.
Let us take another break here on the Scott Radley Show. Again, what's loveavillage.org, L-O-V-E-A village.org. And look, as I say, probably the least sexy thing you could ever imagine donating until you hear about how big of a problem it is around the world. And then you go, well, yeah, you know what? It maybe isn't the most glamorous thing, but it sounds pretty darn important.
You're listening to the Scott Radley Show podcast on 900 CHML.